Welcome to Onkwarihwa'shon television. Of course, this is our ongoing series talking about governance in Kahnawake and the processes that we're using now to create and amend laws. For some, it seems a little complicated. For others, it's like old home week. Joining us on the program is Grand Chief Mike Onkwarihwa'shon Jr. And welcome to the program, Mike.
Yeah.
We looked at this way of governing now for the past couple of years. We've seen it in action, and you've been basically here on the ground floor, and we haven't really had a chance to talk to you about what it's been like to get this thing up and running as someone who's really championed this, because not everyone is as enthusiastic about it. It's been a challenge. Maybe just give us some of your thoughts on how we got here and where we're at today.
Well, I think it goes back before 2004, to be honest, and to give credit where credit is due. There's been discussion in and around the community for decades now, I'll say, about how we need to be, as a community, involved in decisions moving forward, whether it be amending laws, putting laws forward, or any large decision that's going to alter the state of life, if you will, in Kahnawake, in our community. So, again, some of the people who were integral then put forward some ideas. Champion again, as Grand Chief, needing to see that things move forward, things progress, and it's been a constant challenge. There have been people at the table in the past and people presently who aren't completely, I'll say, sold on the idea, and for the right reasons. And if I'm being completely honest and open, myself as well. I mean, it's a brand new process, even though it's based on our culture and society here in not only Kahnawake, but nation country, if you will. We're not trying to exercise any type of duplication. We want to ensure that community is aware of that, and as well bringing people in and involving them in process. I've been critical in the past of community and community members saying there's rampant complacency, and it's not only here in Kahnawake, we see it anywhere, not only in Indian country, but any type of political forum, maybe other than where there's uprisings in the Middle East and so on. But we want to ensure that people step forward. People say they want to have a voice. Well, here it is. Step up to the mic, take your place in our society, and make sure that your voice is heard. So we're trying to ensure that. It's been a challenge. It continues to be a challenge, regardless of which file you look at, everywhere from electoral reform to membership and everything in between. It's continuing, and I hope wholeheartedly that people do, again, step up to the mic and ensure that their place in Kahnawake history is there, and that your voice does mean something. We do want to listen. We are listening. And again, it's been a challenge, and we're hopeful that in the near future that people do become fully immersed and engaged in what I hope to be, something that is monumental to governance development, institutional development, and capacity in Kahnawake.
Well, as someone who's been involved one way or another in the community from the media point of view, and for those who don't, the younger people, I guess, don't know, but my mother was working at the old MRA back when there were only 4 people on staff. And so I go a long way back in seeing how governance has gone, and my mother always talked about how things were going. But you're right about one thing. Over the years, it's been said time and time again, we need to participate in the government. And yet, at the same time, many people seem to just pay that lip service. Is that a sign of the times? Is there maybe too many other things going on in the world? Is it a busier place, or is there something else to it?
I think it's a little bit of both, and you're absolutely right. Like I said, it's not only in Kahnawake or only in Indian country, it's everywhere. We've become the age of technology, some good, some bad, and definitely some ugly. I won't point to any specifics, but people will understand where I'm coming from. And I think overall, we just become, whether you call it complacent, in English, lazy, in terms of allowing things to happen without becoming involved in them. We see and hear the criticisms not only toward MCK but toward other governmental bodies, whether they be here in the community or externally. And to us, it's going back to the roots of our society again and ensuring that, which brings up the major challenge involving, whether it's 4,000 age of majority, 5,000 age of majority, 8,000, 10,000, regardless of what the number is. As our community has grown, it's been very difficult to maintain and get a handle on. Coupled with the problems that you see in the youth being involved in other issues, other things. I'm hoping that education rears its head again in this community and takes its rightful place. But it just seems that we've become accustomed to allowing things to move forward without actually understanding why or becoming immersed. And some people do, but definitely it's got to be the vast majority who do not at this point. Everybody's happy with the 2.5 cars in their driveway, and if both parents or both people in the household work and their 1.5 children, based on statistics, and Ganawagi, maybe it's a little more like 3.5 children, are happy and in school or are working, it's kind of, let life continue. But we're at a critical point now. We've been at a critical point, I would say, probably for the last decade or so. And if we really want things to change in the community, for the better in the future, and stop being critical of each other, I think it's extremely important that we become involved.
You touched on something that was very interesting, and it's been one of the challenges. You said that the community decision-making process kind of going back to our roots, yet at the same time, we're always in a kind of a situation in Kahnawake that we don't want to be stepping on toes and saying that this is traditional government, yet at the same time we want to embrace who we are. That's been a challenge.
Absolutely. And again, we're not trying to duplicate, replicate, or take away from any other processes that are in and around the community. If people are participating, I'm glad for that. But I'm looking at some of the people in the community who don't participate in anything, and we'd like to know what you have to say. Again, constant challenge trying to bring people forward. A lot of people are comfortable. It's another word for complacent, saying we elect leaders, we appoint leaders in different areas in the community, and we're happy with how things are moving along. Well, I'm not. I would like to see us resort back to, if I can use that term, things that have gotten us recognized in the past for who we are. And you're absolutely right. We're not trying to step on toes. It is a little bit of a slippery slope when we start talking that, but I don't think anyone owns that other than everyone in this community, other than everyone within, whether it's Mohawk Nation or beyond. And some people will be critical, that I'm even saying that, but that's what I believe. I think that people have a right and a responsibility. They're directly attached. We've been hasty sometimes to exert rights without taking care of the responsibility aspect of it. And I think that's what part of this process means.
Yeah, as someone who's, of course, been involved in the process, and I'm on the actual commission that helps to do this, I can see where the challenges are, but I also see that what I've seen so far is that there are so many people who are not familiar at all with any of the traditional methods of decision making. And so, this is kind of a bridge towards something else. And I know it's been said before, but this whole process is supposed to be one that is able to evolve.
Absolutely. And I've seen people, whether it was in, and I hate to call it the mock session, but that's what it was called back last May, on membership in the community. I've seen people come in and not really participate, but observe from all walks of life. And you mentioned traditional. I'll call it what it was and is. People from the Longhouse I've seen come in and they've spoken to several people within the process that are involved, like you said yourself and others, myself and others in council, saying, well, we like what we see, we like what we hear, but we need to take it to the next level. And that's my hope. I hope it does attain that next level of governance development here in our community. It's never been lost. It's not something that has been taken away from us. It's been by choice. Again, complacency, comfortability, and all of those types of factors based on who we've turned into today, I'll say. And it's not all bad. It's nature and a matter of life. But I think if we want to get back again to the roots and ensure that community is not only aware and participating, but comfortable in the decisions that are made, then they need to be involved.
Question that comes up is that there have been now several sessions. There haven't been any for a while, but especially with justice, there were several. And overall, let's say there were a couple of hundred participants overall during the thing. Have you had discussions with any of the people who participated to say either they loved it, they hated it, or they were indifferent?
All of the above. I participated in several at the beginning, and I mean, that's one area of criticism as well. It's a council driven, it's a council process initiated and follow through, and they're going to do what they want and so on, and look, based on how many people didn't attend versus how many council members attended. But people forget, and I take this to heart, that we're community members as well. Yeah, maybe we initiated the process to assure all of those principles that I just talked about a few minutes ago, but we're there as community members. We're not trying to drive the process. We're trying to ensure that process is fair. And if you feel that it's weighted in some way, either biased or not with council, then change the numbers. Come and show up and make it more about community in that terms and sense. And I think that's been one of the major challenges internally and externally. Most of the people that I've spoken to that have participated enjoy it. It's been frustrating at times, even for some of them, saying, well, why can't everybody just agree, and it's time to go home now. Well, decisions aren't made that way. It's time to go home now. Decisions are made based on getting all of the information and everybody being comfortable and moving forward with the decision. So there's been frustration from community members, and some people are upset, saying, no, you are trying to replicate a process that's already there, that doesn't belong to you. That, well, we're not trying to say it belongs to us. I believe it belongs to the community, and it should be driven by community. And I'm hoping, in terms of the only way I would see something like this failing is absolute lack of participation. People have already been critical there, saying, well, the numbers are so low, how can you move forward with a decision? In my opinion and mind, I think, how can we not move forward in a decision? We've been stagnant in a lot of areas of development in this community, institutional capacity and so on. It's time to take those steps. And I think that's why, again, community decision-making process, not only LCC, is instrumental in making Kahnawake what it should be.
So then what happens if it doesn't work, or if it gets to a point where the numbers are too low and it becomes a huge concern?
I'll be honest, I don't know, and I'd rather not comment on that at this point. I want it to be successful. The glass is always half full, and I think continuing to be filled, because the alternative is bleak. People have been critical that 12 people should not make certain decisions in and around the community. Well, then let's change that, and let's change it together. 12 people can't change that, whether it's 12 sitting at council elected, whether it's 12 who show up at a forum in the community. It's going to take bigger numbers than that. I know it's not a numbers game, but if you say you want a say and you say you need to be heard, then we're all ears, and we're there trying to listen.
I think it was really interesting during the justice meetings and hearings and whatever we want to call it, but that as varied as the opinions are in Kahnawake, when it came time to sit down, it actually didn't take long to find the common ground. And maybe that's something that has to be looked at a little more, and maybe tell people. Because, anybody who participated kind of looked and said, okay, well, look at our stuff here, look at our list of things. And then when the next group presented, you said, wait a second, that's exactly the same as our group. And then the third group would have basically the same, and usually it was a matter of tweaking and finding some minor things that everybody could agree on. So in terms of, I guess, getting the community to believe in it, it's just going to have to be consistent.
Absolutely, and I think not only consistent, but there's been a lot of, and I'll make a comment based on something you just said, even that, in what you're talking about, has been criticized, saying, well, the open-ended questions or the obvious question is asked, does Kahnawake want its own justice system? It's an obvious answer, yes, but we don't want to be leading either. And we've been criticized of doing that as well. And not only we, I mean the LCC, the Legislative Coordinating Commission, saying, well, you shouldn't be only leading those types of questions in, it should be an open forum. Well, it absolutely is. And the people who have participated have said that. And again, like I said, some people have said the opposite, going, no, I think it is council driven and so on, which is, to me, not a fair statement, but it's still a statement. At least people are taking stock in what's going on in and around them, just not enough in the community. So consistency for sure. And like I said, I don't think there's an alternative at this point. The decisions that have been made in the past, and I'll speak specifically about laws, and no negativity toward the Court of Kahnawake, but we don't want to send laws to Ottawa. We want to ensure that laws that will be heard in the community are based on that and respectful of the decision made by community and not Ottawa or the minister or anyone else, which used to be a process in the past, in the 60s, 70s, and up to the mid-80s. So if we want to change those types of things and have a Kahnawake court and justice system act the way it should, and that's why I'm talking about that institutional capacity, there's no one else who can do it. It's not about Indian Act, it's not about Indian Affairs, it's not about the Mohawk Band Council, it's about the community of Kahnawake.
We, early on, I guess a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, when we first talked about this whole process and why it had to happen and why we had to get away from 12 people making a decision and giving the court more expanded role. One thing we haven't talked about in a long time is the fact that, as you say, people are complacent. Some people, we have a court of Kahnawake already, why do we need more? We forget that we're down to a couple of justices of the peace, and when they retire, there's no one to replace them.
Exactly. They're not appointing anymore. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Again, no slight against what has been in place for a long time, what people have become comfortable with in the community. But people forget, the impetus to that, which was good, but ultimately resulted in justices of the peace being appointed under the Indian Act. A certain section dictates what can and can't be heard in the community, and they're bound by that, and there's confines. So things like our membership law, other initiatives that we're trying to push forward in having external governments recognize Kahnawak's jurisdiction can't be heard until a formal justice system is approved by the people, for the people, borrowing from something that was borrowed from us way back when. And that's the truth. So it's good in its way today, but I think the fact that it's being forced out, so to speak, and they're not appointing any more sectoral judges through the Indian Act, whether it's for Kahnawake or anywhere else, kind of puts us in a good position saying, well, we need to do something for ourselves. The writing's on the wall, what are we prepared to do?
And again, going back to specifically justice, when the surveys were done, and they spoke to a lot of people, 500 or so people, and the vast majority said, let's do it then. So, open-ended or what, the fact is you asked the question, do we need to do it? Very few said no. So it was move forward.
Sure.
The challenges are that it takes long.
Again, like I said, it's been an eye-opener, not only for myself, but other people who I've spoken to as well, saying, it's kind of what I expected, but I didn't expect it to take that long. And that frustration I spoke of a little while ago about why can't we come to consensus, if you will, or one understanding in a shorter period of time? Well, there's no explanation. It is the process. It's been the process in the past, and like I said, the numbers that we've grown to now in this community and been successful in managing up to this point, if that's the proper term, now become problematic when you put them into a system like this and say, well, if the numbers continue to grow, how long will it take to get an amendment to the pigs at large law, to the laws that are in place today? Never mind forming a new one, but taking something as, like I said, old, archaic, mundane as pigs at large and having an amendment process where some people might say, scrap it, and other people might say, well, no, there might be still some validity to this.
There may still be some pigs at large.
Yeah, based in 50, 60, 70 years ago. So that's how complex it can become. So there is a level of frustration there too, but I think it's been an educational experience for anyone who's never been part of a process, something like this.
Wow, you're right. I mean, look at we have the type 1 and the type 2, and again, there's a whole education process there, but recently we had the first type 2 law go forth, which was an amendment to an existing law, and even there were people who were not quite getting it, because when you open up an old existing law and we asked people for comments on the changes to it, they went back to the law and said, wait a second, the law said this, and they were upset with some of the things that were in place now for 40 or 50 years. And it makes you realize, again, just how much work there is to be done. Does MCK or Kahnawake have the resources to take care of all these needs and getting all this legislation updated and changed and getting the community involved? Because there's a cost to this.
And the answer right now is no on either point, cost-wise or in terms of human resource management or allocation for that matter. A lot of the things that have come forward, like you said, need to be addressed, and hopefully will be in the near future. But if the community doesn't, I won't even say absorb this, but immerse themselves and take this as something that they want to see happen. Again, I hate to think what the alternative is. So it really needs to succeed.
Do we need some community advocates for this, as opposed to just the people working in the system saying we're trying to get this done?
I think we have some. I've spoken to people who have no connectivity to the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, the Court of Kahnawake, or what have you, who are now becoming, I won't say public figures, but are becoming involved in more public forums and are speaking out, not only for a legislative coordinating commission or community decision-making process, but just saying your voice needs to be heard. And I think that's a good thing. Anytime there's community awareness to that level, it's indisputable that it's the right thing to do.
We have a couple of big ones coming up. Justice still goes on, and I guess we'll have a draft, we keep saying shortly, but I see that there are things back on the schedule and it should be moving along, and hopefully early in the fall we'll have something there. There's the Type 2 amendment that's going on, but also we have membership coming up, which is, I guess, for many the biggest story of the last couple of years, and it's been ongoing now for 50 years and probably beyond that. You're the portfolio chief now for membership, and is there anything new to report on the amendments that are coming forth on there? There were some meetings on this last year.
Yeah, the only thing that I can say right now is that we're about a year plus behind in terms of involving community. People took part in surveys the better part of a year ago into up to 6-7 months ago or so. Those reports are finalized. They have been made public. Those things need to go into these public forums. I'm quite surprised in terms of some of the sentiment based on some of the comments I guess I had heard prior to looking at what exactly was said during these sessions. But a lot of those things aren't going to be a surprise to a lot of people who have looked at them or who are prepared to look at them now. And also, I think people have said, how many times they're going to ask? Well, membership, and some people consider citizenship being something completely different, which I agree with, have been part of this community discussion forever. And I think will continue to be part of that discussion as we continue to grow and evolve. Some of the things that are now looked at in terms of recommendation, I won't say amendments because that's up to the community, are a little bit eye-opening. There has been a bit of opening in some of the things, but some of the main points, principles, issues within, whether it's custom code, 81 moratorium, 84 law, 2003-4 custom code on membership, will still be maintained. I don't see those things changing because we are who we are. Stubborn, if you want to call it that, or principled, if you want to ensure that those things are mentioned as well. But it's difficult, and it's a living thing. It's been alive, obviously very controversial for many people involved over the course of at least the last 25 years, I'll say, but it's been ongoing forever. There are some lesser, I'll say, important internal things that will be changing in the next little while. There's been obviously problems between us, community, and participants, as well as people who had been appointed on the Council of Elders, which is still in abeyance, if you will, mutually agreed upon 3 years ago now, almost. And it's time to move on. Some of those things need to be, and I believe can be addressed and redressed through the registrar, which is another issue at this point.
We don't have a registrar.
The registrar recently left, was not renewed. We have interim, who's also double duty as a social development director, so it's a strain. And we're looking to have some of those authorities, if you will, reinstated through council to the registrar. And I'm not saying that we're circumventing all of these processes or circumventing the law, but some of those things that had been changed led to some of the problems between us. Those need to be rectified. People that have been waiting, for at least 3 years, if not some much longer, need to be addressed. And I believe in the short term they will be. Yeah. So small steps, if you will, but the bigger issue definitely will need to go back through community decision-making process, LCC, and community.
There's a lot of chicken and egg kind of thing happening right there. And by the way, for those of you who would like to see what the latest survey, how things came out and how the community either changed its mind or didn't, go to the Kahnawake.com website and you'll be able to find it, and I think probably be somewhat surprised by some of those results. Anyway, there's more to come in the fall on that. As we get ready to close up the show, we still have a few minutes, of course, but in part of the evolution of this process, we've had to look at staffing issues. Linda Delormier has done wonderful work over the past several years now as the coordinator of the Legislative Coordinating Commission. It was a part-time job, and that has become a strain. She also has another job which she loves very much. We talked a little bit about it when she was here, but Linda's done such a tremendous job, and now her shoes are going to be filled, and those are very tough shoes to be filled. But the announcement made that Gahande Horn Miller, actually, pardon me, Gahande, but I just know you as Gahande. She has been announced as the new coordinator, and it's a full-time job. It is, 5 days a week. Linda had 2 jobs, kind of, and that was part of the problem, too.
Well, first I'll say yawa to Linda. I mean, she's become a target in some circles based on her principles, her belief in this system, which I applaud, and she knows the internal issues, problems that we faced together, not only at the council table, through staffing and administration, like you said, and just overall acceptance of this as something new to a lot of people in the community. So, like you said, she's done amazing work in the last little while. I believe her heart's where it belongs right now in terms of language culture and ensuring that becomes integral, not only in Mohawk Council, but also external into the community as well. So good luck there. But it's been a challenge for her, definitely. And we've spoken maybe not as often as we should have, and that goes to me and my scheduling. But the chances we do, a lot of things that she'll share with me is the same way I feel. You know, there's been frustrations at many levels through different things, but it's gotten to the point it's at now based on people like her who have been able to move this thing forward in face and in light of a lot of criticism and negativity. So hats off to her. Gahande, I think, is obviously a very good choice. I'm not part of selection committee or what have you, but I think her demeanor, more than anything else, will be something that will allow this thing to flourish and move forward. I think she has the understanding internally, and I'll say externally, to process, to understand what this is about and how we're looking to change governance in the community once again. And I think that's probably, without speaking to her, one of the reasons why she's looking for this challenge, because no doubt it's going to be a huge challenge for her as well, for various reasons. Good luck. I mean, I'm here, we're here, council is there, and hopefully the community will be too, but I'm happy to hear that Gahande has accepted and will allow this thing to move forward in a good direction.
Yeah, so in early October, she should be on the job. She'll have to hit the ground running, needless to say, and on my behalf, I'd like to say nyauko to Linda for being an inspiration on this file. She's really worked hard, but it does need someone who's there all day long, all the time, to be, being kind of like the whip on the thing. Let's go, let's get it done. So I guess that just about does it. And Mike, I'd like to thank you for taking time to join us today on this edition of Onkwarihwa'shon television. And any last words?
Well, again, I think I've stressed enough the importance of people stepping forward, people's voice being heard, being involved in this. It's to fight back the external jurisdiction that continues to grow on a daily basis and continues to be a biggest challenge for Kahnawake. So be involved.
And with that, we'd like to say thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Ona.
Ganya ke haga tadi adaras de gayerniga yadu zewaderoru.